Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Swart, Business Development Manager at Worldwide Technology. We appreciate you joining us today. We're going to explore how you can keep pace with the growth of mobile devices and cloud technologies that are inundating your company. But before we do that, let's talk a bit about some housekeeping. Everyone is muted today because we have so many people on. We want to make sure everyone can hear. However, you do have access to asking questions throughout the event. On the right side of your WebEx screen, you'll see a Q&A. If you will put your questions in there as they occur to you, we will have some people who are monitoring these questions and will answer them along the way. And at the end, we will probably also have time to verbally answer some of the questions that come about. Also, there's a poll that's appearing for you. We're going to tell you some things that we've seen. We also want to hear some feedback from you. So if you would do us a favor and answer those few questions in the polling, that would help us a good deal in determining what's important to you. So, as I said, my name is Michelle Swart. I'm a Business Development Manager at Worldwide Technology, and I'll be joined here speaking today by Matt Long, Senior Business Development Manager at WWT as well. Between the two of us, we have long-term and varied experience in everything from engineering to sales to marketing to business development, financial analysis. And we hope that we can use that experience to help you explore iWAN and how it can positively affect your business. Across industries, the growth of mobile applications, software as a service, cloud applications, things like Office 360, WebEx that we're using today, and any number of things, immersive video. This is really affecting your business and how your network works, whether you're in retail or finance or education or some other vertical. Everything keeps growing. And we know that you see that as an issue, it's a challenge, or you probably wouldn't be here today unless, oh, by the way, you were wanting the Apple Watch and you have to stay to the end to have an opportunity to win that. But more than likely, I think you've just seen some challenges within your company. But there are also opportunities. And as we can kind of see here, there are a number of things that having a more efficient network can do for your company. It can enable you to generate more sales, to really bring customers closer to you, to improve learning, whether it be internally or for your customers, or whether you're in education or not. Everybody within a company or every company has education sections within your company. Across global distributed organizations, this digital innovation that we've spoken of is really overwhelming the branch. You look at all the different kind of applications that people are using today that they just weren't even using a month ago. 80% of your employees and your customers interact with you through your branch. And if you don't have adequate bandwidth there, you're not going to be able to do the things that you need to do. Your company will not be effective. Your customers won't be able to interact with you the way that you would like for them to. And that's just how it is today. Think about as things progress, there'll be more and more applications, more and more devices, and more security threats as well. Expectation is that bandwidth will increase 20 to 50% per year through the year 2018. That's an awful lot. And that at the same time, your WAN budget is probably not increasing. In fact, it might even be decreasing. It's expected over the next 5 years for 3x the traffic to be on your network as it is today. Meanwhile, more than half of you will have your WAN budget not increase or maybe even decrease. So let's just say, all right, fine. I'm one of those organizations that has plenty of money and I can buy all the bandwidth I want. That might not even be true. You might not have access to the bandwidth. Let's say your company, one of your branches is a mall, and there's not enough bandwidth that you can even add on. Or you're in a remote location where you can't get the bandwidth that you need. So even if you have the money, which almost nobody does, you still may not be able to add the bandwidth that you need. What are some solutions that we might want to look at? What if you could transform your business What if you could improve your application performance by having visibility into your network so that you could find out where issues were and pinpoint them in minutes instead of hours?
Yes.
What if you could deliver more bandwidth for the same or lower cost? If you could double your bandwidth just based upon doing things in a different way than you're doing today, or even go beyond that with some network optimization techniques. Security is important to everyone, so being able to secure every user, every device that's accessing your network is really important. What if you could make sure that was the case? And what if you could simplify network changes and be able to make things happen within your company really quickly, just a few minutes instead of hours, and be able to manage your network as a system rather than device by device. With Cisco Intelligent WAN, you can actually do these things. The vision of iWAN is uncompromised experience over any connection. Doesn't matter who the user is, what the device is that they are using, what application they are using. Also doesn't matter if you're using a private network, an MPLS circuit, the internet, a public cloud, or whether you're using a combination of both. With Cisco iWAN, you can get the very most out of your network securely, at scale, for lower cost, with a really good application experience, and also be able to simplify how IT works with your network. So what sort of things does iWAN enable? It's all good to know, what's happening in the market, that there is a potential fix for maybe any challenges that you may have around bandwidth, but what else can it enable? 3 different ways, 3 main things. It can help you grow revenues. It can help you improve your user experience, your customer experience, and it can help you reduce costs and improve efficiency. A few sub-bullets around each of these things in terms of growing revenues. Okay, how can you do that with just having a better network? Well, everybody knows about all the applications that are coming out. So if you have an application that will, for example, enable you to have your customers check out more quickly and get the money from them. For example, I shop at REI. Every time I go to REI, there's a long line at the register. But they've implemented the ability to be able to check you out in the store. So if you had the proper network that would enable that, wouldn't that be a really interesting way to help grow revenue? Because I know before they had that, I have left before because I just didn't have the time to go through the line. That's one way. And that type of thing really helps improve customer engagement as well, because you're able to interact with the customers and see what it is that is interesting to them, find the kind of application that gives them the things that they want. And all of this really increases productivity. So, being able to do something wherever somebody is on whatever device is really, really helpful to the customer and to your employees as well. In terms of improving customer experience, what we just talked about was a little bit of that as well. But customers are having increased and increased and increased expectations. What they want today, they'll want twice that tomorrow. They'll want 12 more apps tomorrow that they didn't have today. And if you have a WAN that cannot be easily changed, it can be hard for you to keep up with that. So being able to do things quickly and efficiently and not break the bank is really, really important. Very quick access to content for your customers can enable them to spend money with you more quickly. Also, reducing the cost and efficiency. That comes up over and over again. So flexibility, efficiency, really, really important aspects here. So lowering the WAN costs and getting better utilization out of your network. If you didn't even increase any of your bandwidth with iWAN, you could get more out of it. Let's look at a few specific verticals where we've seen quite a lot of improvement. And I'll just go ahead and tell you in advance that some of these are individual companies, some of these are kind of a conglomeration of several, just to show you some good use cases of how customers are using this. Education is an area where there is definitely limited budget. almost no educational institution has the money they need to keep their WAN running properly. As a result, quite often there's insufficient and aging infrastructure. They also don't often have an IT staff to keep their network up to date and working well. So if they have any issues, that's a trouble. Still, they have the need to keep improving their curriculum and to be able to disperse what they're teaching in a wide area in many cases. So what's really important to them is to be able to improve the network reliability and the network speed. And in this particular case, one of the customers, because they did not have an IT staff, WWT was able, well, at least they didn't have a sufficient IT staff. WWT was able to come in and augment their staff for a period of time to get things implemented until they could take back over. They were also able to standardize in all of the locations the way their network was put together and what they were doing. As a result, they ended up with 25 times improved network speed. That's a lot, quite a bit. And the interesting result in this case is a 30% test score improvement. Like, okay, how does improving a network influence test scores? Well, the trouble in one particular situation was that the network was so old and slow, it was taking about 45 seconds for a question to be presented to a student in standardized tests. 45 seconds? They probably could have answered 5 questions in 45 seconds in many cases. So really reducing the time that it took for a question to be presented because the network was faster helped them improve their test scores. Retail is another area where it's really important to be able to interact with your company, with your customers, and to have the right kind of experience for those customers that will spend their money with you. Really re-energize their in-store experience. One thing that we've seen a particular customer do is to put RFID tags in high-value, high-margin merchandise. And when someone approaches, when they're shopping in the store, then to start up a video that will show information about that product and make the customer more likely to purchase. Also, they've done line breaking, where we're talking about like at REI, where people their employees can be throughout the store helping people check out. And not just check out, but in some cases also be presented with additional options for what they might buy. Excuse me, try through. In this case, 80% improvement in content delivery. That's really, really large. 3 times the time customers spend in the store. We hope during that time they spend more money. Financial services is important as well in terms of their number of things. You know, high bandwidth usage, got to have high reliability, got to be able to back up information if you lose it. You cannot go down. You can't let anybody hack into it. It has to be secure. That can really result in some high MPLS WAN costs. And also, financial institutions are often very geographically diverse, sometimes globally. And so the delay within the network, if it is not set up properly, can cause all sorts of trouble within the company. So in this case, in a financial institution, we're definitely able with iWAN to enable a lower cost to make the proper connectivity, and also to really improve the security. So those are a few, forgot the last thing. So in this case, one large financial institution was able to reduce their WAN cost by 40%. That's a really significant dollar, especially if you think about what the dollars were they were spending to start with. So we've talked about what you might do, some verticals where it might be applicable. There are many more. Matt Long is going to come up and talk to you about how you can determine whether it's right for you.
Thanks, Michelle. Audio coming through okay? So my name's Matt Long. I've been at Worldwide for around 15 years in a variety of different roles. And Michelle talked a lot about the use cases for iWAN I'm going to dig more into what that roadmap looks like to get you from where you are today to what iWAN could do for your business in the future. A large portion of this piece of the webcast is going to be around the financial benefits of iWAN itself, and also how Worldwide can help you cost effectively evaluate it and implement it into your environment. What are some of the financial ramifications of doing that, and what does that business case look like? Before we dig into that, one of the key pieces of the evaluation process for iWAN is just the upfront solutioning and engineering. Is the solution going to meet your business requirements? How are we going to do things in a secure fashion? Security is very critical out at the branch locations, and that's a key piece of what our engineering teams will do on the front end, is map your requirements, the appropriate architecture and engineering design to do that. Once we've done that, how do you implement the solution as quickly as possible? As you'll see in a few minutes, there are significant financial benefits to an iWAN architecture. How can we enable you to capture those benefits as quickly as possible? On the front end, one of the key things to evaluate iWAN is the actual just demonstrating the technology. How is the technology going to work in your environment? And one of the things that Worldwide has done as part of that, we have a significant investment in labs, and iWAN demonstrations is a key piece of how we guide our clients down that journey. So now I'm just showing a view into our Advanced Technology Center portal. And inside of our Advanced Technology Center portal, within our networking practice, you can see we have significant demonstration capabilities around iWAN. These are demonstrations that our field engineering teams and account teams can pull up and walk you through so that you can get a feel for how iWAN is going to react in your environment. We need to get more granular and more detailed. Proof of concepts or additional things that we can bring to bear as part of the evaluation cycle. But the thing about the evaluation piece is oftentimes that's an expensive process. You may be large enough to get demonstration equipment from Cisco to do this. You still have to have people to stand up that equipment. You have to have space inside of your data center to be able to evaluate it, configure it, cable it, and do all of those things to make sure that it's going to be a fit for your environment. And those are all pieces that we can bring as part of the evaluation cycle in an accelerated fashion, in a very cost-effective fashion. We're going to dig into some of these financial ramifications here shortly. So once we've done that evaluation and we've deemed that it's appropriate to move forward with iWAN, another piece is the financial side. It's got to make good, sound financial sense. So what are the financial benefits around iWAN specifically? And the benefits that I'm sharing here, what we're going to go through, some of these are attributed to how Worldwide would guide you through that process. Others are most definitely attributed directly to Cisco's intellectual property around the iWAN solution. Those benefits, I talked about a lot about the evaluation and the cost benefits that can accrue from an effective evaluation cycle. Circuit expenses across WAN locations. Michelle talked about that large financial institution. And we'll show you what a 40% reduction in your MPLS circuit costs could look like. Remote workforce productivity. With the proliferation of cloud-based applications, if your network isn't optimized and there's application degradation in your branch office, those employees lose time. We want to give that time back to them by having an appropriate network architecture. Furthermore, when that network is not architected properly and they're not productive as much time as you would want them to be, there's ramifications to that in terms of lost sales potentially. And we're going to talk through a financial model around what revenue recapture can look like. Another key benefit is just around the shift that Cisco is making in their licensing models and how they're doing software with Cisco One and some of the feature sets that are available as part of a Cisco One software SKU that would go into an iWAN solution. Significant financial benefits from a software and licensing perspective. And then just from an implementation standpoint, how can we cost effectively get things implemented at branch locations in a streamlined fashion? And then how do we manage maintenance as part of it? That's another key benefit from an overall evaluation perspective when you're looking at building the businesses. So the first one that I'm going to go through is just the upfront evaluation. Worldwide has invested around $1.5 million list price in demonstration capabilities or demonstration equipment inside of our lab. So we've discounted that. Enterprise organizations see significant discounts on that. But by leveraging our facility, there's a capital savings by not having to go out and procure that demonstration equipment, bring it into your own research lab to do an initial evaluation on that equipment. So at a 50% reduction, that's a $750,000 cost avoidance for the upfront evaluation piece from a capital perspective. Furthermore, I talked earlier around the implementation cycles and the engineering expertise to actually spend the time to implement those solutions. So that's another significant operating expense that can be driven out by leveraging what we've already put into our labs. Another one is around tooling and the notion of mimicking what's going on in your WAN, looking at latency and different circuit types and things of that nature. Those lab tools are very expensive, but in order to get a real feel for how iWAN can react or how you could leverage things, that's another piece that would be thrown into the evaluation cycle and another area of significant cost benefits or cost avoidance that can be had when you're evaluating a solution. Now we're going to dig into the actual circuit side of the conversation. These are fictitious examples in terms of just representative use cases, and this is something that we would do as part of that journey along with you, is to build out that business case to support what you're looking at investing in. But Michelle talked about the WAN circuit expenses. So just bear with me for a minute, and let's assume we have an organization that has 2,700 branch locations. Well, we have these segmented into micro, small, medium, and large branches. Let's assume that for redundancy purposes, they have dual MPLS circuits at all of these locations. One of the things that iWAN can unlock using performance-based routing and other types of technologies is just a reduction in your overall circuit expense. That could be moving from MPLS to just an internet class circuit, or it could be potentially you want to stay with MPLS but potentially lower your bandwidth by being able to more fully utilize your network. These are all data points that we can capture and then build back in. But so we've assumed in this model that there are dual MPLS circuits at an appropriate monthly cost at all of these locations. So over a 5-year time frame, this customer profile is looking at close to $100 million just in monthly, or from monthly circuit expenses across their wide area network. So if we take the assumption that we can move one of those circuits from an expensive MPLS circuit to just an internet class circuit, which are roughly around 50% the cost. Now, some circuit providers are starting to reduce some of their MPLS costs. So it's important to do the engineering design, make sure that there's not going to be any application performance degradation to do this. But once we've done that, we can work to determine what those circuit cost savings would be. But in this example, if we're able to reduce one of the redundant circuits down to a 50% reduced cost circuit, that derives an overall reduction of 25%. The example that Michelle talked about was a 40% cost savings on the WAN. So a 25% reduction is very real once we're able to actually dig in and do the architecture. But as you can see, the cost savings across all of these branch locations really get significant. So I've factored in a 25 blended across the blended reduction across the micro, small, medium, and large branches. And as you can see, over a 5-year time frame, a savings with the numbers that we have here and the cost that we're representing is over $4.5 million a year with the growth rate that we've assumed. So a significant savings. And then as we're talking about each of these evaluation areas, the models are going to work together to kind of build out what the overall benefit would look like to invest in iWAN. We talked about application performance degradation, and so this is a productivity model that assumes the workers in the branch offices lose some time just simply because they're using cloud-based applications. Those applications aren't performing for them to be fully productive in their daily jobs. So in this example, we have a pool of employees that are roughly losing almost 8% of their time just simply because those applications aren't performing. They're slow. You get the hourglass on your PC, for example, and you're just not able to do the things that you need to do. Those use cases that Michelle highlighted demonstrate or at least talk about how iWAN can help reduce the application performance loss in a very material fashion. So even if we only achieve a 50% reduction in the application performance loss, that's going to give time back to this group of employees. So you see in the upper right-hand side of this model, for those employees at those 2,700 or so branch locations, giving 50% of that time savings back to them returns 1.2 million hours over a 5-year time frame with a significant number of employees that are in the branch. Not an insignificant number of man hours or labor hours taken into consideration. So what does that do from a cost savings standpoint? Well, those people have that time back, so you don't need to continue to hire people at the same rate in the branch location. So you see a cost benefit or opportunity cost in the reduction of new hires to be able to continue to grow your business. By giving that time back, those people at the branch can do more with what they have, and so you don't need to continue adding headcount at the same rate. And when you are able to evaluate what that new hire reduction would be, then you start to see the cost savings accrue to your organization. Let's talk about revenue recapture. So let's assume those same locations where those branch workers have lost 8% of their time. Let's say they're not able to close sales during the 8% of those times because their applications are performing. The point of sale application could be down potentially. If we can give that back to them, so now they're able to recapture some of those sales, what would that look like? So what we've built into this model is across those 2,740 locations, they're losing 2 orders per day. They have an operating margin of roughly 5% and an average order amount of around $35. So now we've optimized their WAN. We've put in a more robust architecture. Those applications are performing better, and they're able to capture those sales. They're not walking out of the store like Michelle talked about when she's shopping at a retail location. They're actually recapturing some of that time. So now let's say we just recaptured 20% of those lost sales. Over $500,000 per year in income based on a 5% operating margin inside this organization. So not only do we have cost savings, but we have revenue growth and income growth in addition to the savings side of the equation. Licensing. The old traditional way of doing a la carte licensing and a license that's tied directly to a device that goes into your network is changing. Cisco is moving to a Cisco One, which has license portability, perpetual license, where you can move licensing from one device to another as you go through a lifecycle refresh. It's important to look at the entire life cycle of the asset and when you would actually schedule to refresh that asset, and then you're able to avoid another purchase of a license when you're transferring it. It's a significant savings. Oftentimes, if you compare Cisco One over the current a la carte, which is the more standard way of doing things, it's shifting. There's oftentimes around a 5 to 10% reduction over a 5-year time frame in terms of your licensing expense. You've got to look at the a la carte SKUs, what the pricing would be at your discount levels, compare that to what the Cisco One SKUs would be. But a significant savings can accrue by looking at a different way of licensing your Cisco software. And another piece of that is there's additional features that are bundled in those licenses and in those software SKUs, specifically around WAN. WAS is a part of Cisco, the foundation for WAN within Cisco One. If you have WAN optimization tools or appliances out at your branch locations and you're licensed by leveraging Cisco One, you're licensed for some of those feature sets, what would it look like to potentially remove some of those other WAN optimization appliances? And more importantly, the annual maintenance expenses that go along with those devices at the branch location. So in this example, we did some research and we're looking at around a $1,250 annual maintenance expense for a WAN optimization appliance out at a branch location. And we're able to reduce that significantly by investing in the one software that would go as part of an iWAN solution. And once you do that and you actually drive out some of those additional expenses, you can see a significant reduction in complexity. You're reducing some of the nuances between different solution providers working together in an environment, and you see a significant reduction in your maintenance expenses for other appliances, just due to the fact that you've already licensed it on a device that you're already putting into your environment. The final category is actually the implementation side of things. And Worldwide Technology looks to leverage a lot of our supply chain capabilities to help you cost effectively implement the solution. So two of the areas are around staging and configuration of your assets before they show up to a branch location. So in this model, we've assumed that there's a services rate or implementation expense on top of your acquisition cost of your hardware. We can leverage a factory-style implementation approach where we're able to spread the cost of our facility and people to do a portion of the professional services work that would more traditionally be done on site and drive some cost out of the implementation of an iWAN solution, so that when it shows up at the branch location, it's configured. So a job that may have taken 5 days for an engineer on site can be done in 1 or 2, and you see a significant acceleration in the implementation and an overall cost reduction as well. And the other piece that's important is to look at just a customer's overall cash flows. Oftentimes, with a branch location, there's a number of sites that need to be done, so you're looking at a significant capital outlay where assets are going to sit in a facility for a period of time, awaiting deployment based on an implementation schedule. So what would it look like for us to align to have a very rigorous planning process and look at a just-in-time inventory planning model and a just-in-time invoicing strategy where we're not only staging assets and configuring them before they show up, we're invoicing you once that asset ships from our location and arrives at your location ready to be implemented. And you've implemented it, you're receiving some of those benefits that we've already talked about before the actual cash is out the door, so for the investment in the hardware. And another one is just around SmartNet and managing it. There's a lot of synergies between an iWAN solution and actually refreshing your branch architectures. You invest a significant amount of money in SmartNet and your maintenance strategies, and rightfully so. Branch is a key part of the revenue-generating pieces of your business. You've got to have support for those devices. But you also want to make sure you're maximizing your investments in maintenance. So in that just-in-time delivery strategy that I talked about, we want to entitle SmartNet at an appropriate time when it's leaving our facility so you don't have idle time in your SmartNet contract. And that's significant in terms of the savings that can accrue to you based on optimizing when you're activating things. Similarly, I'm assuming that most of the equipment at your branch location is under support today. You probably put some of that on a renewal contract where you're either paying on a lease or you've prepaid for maintenance for a period of time. If you're going to refresh that equipment to an iWAN-enabled device, we want to make sure that we're capturing any credits that might potentially be due to you just based on the timing of how much life you have left on your contract. So, for example, if you have a SmartNet renewal where you have invested in a 3-year SmartNet contract and you're going to pull one of those devices out 6 months in, and you're going to refresh that for another Cisco device, like for like, port for port, some additional feature sets to unlock some of the benefits we've been talking about. We want to make sure we capture the other 2.5 years and apply that to the new device as it flows into your environment. That's what we're talking about here. And the key piece of all of these is to look across all of the different financial ramification areas that we've been talking about. As you can see, while one in and of itself might not make iWAN look appealing by itself, but if you stack all of them that would apply to your situation, the savings in comparison to what you would invest in the hardware, the software, and the services to implement the solution typically will paint a very compelling financial picture. So this gives us just the combined impact across all of the financial areas that we've been talking about. And then it's obviously important to compare that to the investment that it's going to take to get into the iWAN architecture. And that's what this would give us the ability to do. So let's say we've gone through the engineering discussions, we've gone through the circuit sizing exercise. We know what we're going to move forward with in terms of the proposed bill of materials or capital expense to implement iWAN. And let's put that at around a $3.6 million as kind of an arbitrary figure for representative purposes. And then there is the notion of an ongoing expense. You're going to have maintenance expenses. You're going to have software support expenses, and you're going to have professional services expenses to implement those solutions. But as you can see here, when you compare those to the benefits that can accrue to your organization across the other impact areas that we've described, it paints a very compelling picture from a financial standpoint. So that's really what we wanted to go through today as part of this webcast. Understand we've been relatively brief, but I think that's good. Everyone's busy, so we don't want to spend more time than we need to kind of talk through the business benefits of the solution, whether it's the use cases or the financial side of things. In terms of next steps, reach out to Worldwide Technology. If you know who your account manager is in the field, certainly that's a great place to start, or you can certainly contact us from our website as well. And it doesn't look like there's any questions on the webcast. So with that, I hope this was a beneficial use of your time, and we do thank you for your attendance this afternoon.